Good morning. We'll talk about some energy transfer, electromagnetic of course, electrical, magnetic, it's all the same. Different forms, energy. Two separate magnets. Well, they're made up of small magnets, but they're forming two magnetic systems, or two separate magnets. Attraction, repulsion. There is no mass exchange. It's a field reaction. It's pretty simple. Field reaction. I want you to think about that. No mass exchange. And yet we can exhibit force at a distance. Oh, that spooky action. It's not spooky. It's quite explainable. It's quite logical. We get on to photons. I don't know why people have a problem with photons. Very simple. Some advanced concepts, but you can just look, if you just want a really basic 6-year-old's version of how a photon should be perceived. It's a little packet of energy. It travels in a straight line. And as far as our solar system is the scale, if we just say within the solar system, it's a straight line. You know, we'll leave all the rubbish out of it. Anywhere in the solar system, straight line, photon, A to B, straight line. I can't see what's so hard to understand about that. So if you can accept an electromagnetic particle, we're going to go with the standard term. People call it a particle. It's a quanta of energy, a photon. It travels in a straight line. You got that? It has no mass. It doesn't need mass. It has energy. And it can affect mass. The question is, can mass affect the photon? Well, in free space, no. When it gets absorbed by the electron, yes. The energy is transferred, the photon disappears. There's no mass exchange. I don't know why you people just keep thinking a photon has mass. It doesn't. It has energy. Like the magnet. It can affect something. It can move physical things. It can change the vibration of an electron. And there's some really, well, no, we're not going to digress into the upper energy levels. We'll just, might be too hard for you. I don't want your heads to explode. Velocity of light. Why do you think it has a limit? The whole universe would fall apart if it didn't have a limit. It's what I call a constant. A proven, reliable constant that we use to make wavelength calculations. I have no reason to doubt the constant. I've calculated it myself. And my answer was so close to what the claimed answer is. There's no reason for me to dispute the constant c, the velocity of light. You talk about photon energy levels. This is where it gets really important. This is a good thing about me making a video, is I talk, you listen. If you miss it, you can rewind it and play it again. And if you don't understand what I'm saying, keep playing it until you do understand. So many problems. I don't have a problem. My theory and my practical, the theory dictates what should happen in the practical proves the theory, so, and I don't have to go into math. I should be able to explain it to you without any math. We can only use the math later, after you understand the principles, to predict the properties of light. I should be able to talk, you listen, I talk, and then I should be able to convey, without using big words, the full theory. And it's not simple. There are concepts that people just don't get. Like their persistence with the idea that a photon has mass. That just makes them look silly. The way to do it is to perform, if you don't have a lab or you don't have anything to do the experiments with, the way to do it is look at all the other experiments that have been done and see if you can analyse the data and fit your theory into how it's happened. Now let's talk about draft science versus the 4 times wave thing. You can Google, and I'm not even going to bother typing in the YouTube video address. I've seen the video, and there are some fundamental errors. There's fundamental flaws in his principles. And I don't care if you don't like it. I just want you to bloody find the truth. You're after the truth. I'm after the truth. I don't have to worry about photon theory. I got it 100%. 100%. I can draw you lots of pictures and lots of math, and we can go right down to the shape of a photon and what it does and how it operates. We'll talk about, in that video he mentions 2 antennas out of phase. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. If they're out of phase, they'll have destructive interference where you get less of a signal on your primary receiving antenna. If they're in phase, you'll get an increase. You'll get additive components of voltage and magnetism, and it's the voltage you're looking for. And that's how antennas work. You've got a magnetic field coming in at a frequency, so like a wave, it's oscillating, and that generates or induces the magnetic fields cutting through a conductor will induce a voltage. Now, I'm pretty sure you know, you did mention in one of your videos there, Gary, about that you've realised that you can have 90-degree vector changes without loss of energy. That's pretty close to the truth, but you'll still get infrared losses from moving your electrons. Very, very minor, you know, it's not worth mentioning in a calculation, but you've got to realise there are losses doing that 90-degree turn. Very small, well under a thousandths of 1%, but it is additive. So I've got a few notes here, and I want to clear up this whole photon thing so that you can move ahead forward with your theory. I like your theory, but you got flaws in it, Gary. You got to fix your theory. You can't ride a broken bike. So we just talked about a magnetic wave inducing a voltage into an antenna. Now to do that, with quanta of energy. That means they've all got to be in phase as they are flying through space. It doesn't happen always. That's what we call a coherent photon array, travelling in space without mass. And I probably will do some diagrams on a 100-watt light beam, you know, say in a metre, 1 square metre, or I can, you know, actually, Gary, I'll tell you what, you design the dimensions and the wavelength, and I'll go through all the calculations and I'll tell you exactly what it is. I don't care what you think. Your thoughts about me or anybody else's thoughts about me are irrelevant. I'm like the photon. I don't care. I care about the target and the energy I've got to transfer to that target. So I've been over it. Photons have no mass. Like a water wave is made of molecules, so is an electromagnetic wave is made of photons. That's a lot of people's problem. Oh, it's a wave. Oh no, it's particles. Have you ever thought maybe they all get together and travel as a wave? So we'll go over it. Photons travel in a straight line. They have no mass, and they can group up and be coherent or incoherent, and they can form waves. For example, the fluorescent light up there to my left is hitting me with photons that are in a 50 Hertz field, transmitting photons firstly to ultraviolet light that hit the phosphor coating, and then that is re-radiated down as visible light in between 600 to 400 nanometers, right in the terahertz range. But it drops the frequency, so it emits visible light, and then those photons are hitting me. But at the same time as hitting me, gazillions, and I've told you what I mean by gazillions, a really big number that it's not worth worrying about. So there's gazillions of photons travelling in all different directions in this room from that fluorescent light. They're travelling in straight lines in a radial pattern, and then they're reflecting off everything else, like my monitor screen there. It's very easy. And there's no mass. You get that? There's no mass in photons. They can travel as a wave, or a group of photons get together and travel as a wave. Been going over some radiation patterns. The energy of the photon, I better mention that. Now, once again, you, Gary, I'm speaking to you. This video is made for you to progress with your theory. And don't doubt me. Do not doubt me. Prove it. I want you to prove what I'm saying. Don't try and prove against me. Prove what I'm saying. Going by accepted classical physics, energy is controlled by Planck's law. The energy in a photon is quantized. That's why they say it's a quanta of energy. The smaller the wavelength, the higher the frequency, and this is really going to get you. The higher that frequency, that means the higher the force of the photon. Smaller wavelength, higher energy. And there's a limit. And one thing I hate is people saying infinite. infinity. You cannot have infinity in a quantized universe. There are a set number of particles in this universe. There's a set amount of energy. Energy particles, they all interchange. It's a big energy circuit. And you're only getting a fraction of it. Only a tiny fraction. I'll tell you about, I'll mention in this video about magnets. 100% incorrect. Ken Wheeler, Scientifically. I watch Scientifically. I laugh till I'm crying. I seriously do. He's got it so wrong, and he's claiming God told him. Well, I don't think it's God telling him. I think it might be one of the voices in his head, because he's just wrong. He's just wrong. He won't talk to me. He says he's an engineer. He's not an engineer's arsehole. Unbelievable. So, I don't agree with your 4x wave thing. To me, it's not mature. I want you to take what I've told you today and take into consideration what I'm saying. And as far as all these people with PhDs in basket weaving, they might make good basket weavers, but they don't know electrical theory. I have respect for people with PhDs in physics and maybe mathematics, but if you're going to come at me with your crap in, you've got a PhD in liberal arts or whatever, you know, okay, I can understand you spend a lot of time in university and you might have more eloquent forms of communication, but your PhD ain't worth two knobs of goat shit in electrical theory. I'm sorry. And I will take physicists on and argue the point with them. Even about magnetic fields. I redid Ken Wheeler's work. I even looked at Scientific Lee's work, and I just shook my head. It's wrong. It's just too wrong to even... I won't talk about magnets, but the forces are interchangeable. You convert magnetism to electricity, you convert electricity to magnetism, you can convert electricity to photons. You cannot convert magnetism to photons directly. You have to go through the magnetism electric photon stage. And you know, I have this working model of a photon, a picture of it that I've shown previously. It still holds valid. And it especially holds valid in a grid system. And getting back to that, the grid system and how the photon works and how it moves through space and how it does it with others, and how you end up with there's basically 4 different modes of polarization. Vertical polarization, you have horizontal polarization, you have left-handed circular polarization and right-handed circular polarization. So that's 4 different polarization modes. And all that polarization means, the very simple one is to say, okay, well, let's go vertical polarization. And see, I've got no Google here. I've got a picture of Gary on the monitor there. He's drawing some green and blue lines. Where is it? What is it? It's at the... at 54 minutes and 45 seconds on his 4x wave thing video, and he's drawing some green lines and some, you know, half the stuff Gary makes says sense, and half I can back 100%. And all I want to do is correct you, Gary. All I want to do is correct your faults and your misunderstandings, and I don't care what you say. You know, I'm giving you 100% truth here. And even if I was the devil telling you the truth is still the truth. So yeah, let's talk about that polarization thing. If you've got a vertically polarized field, that you're talking about the electric field. That's the reference. The electric field is in the vertical position. Now, as that photon's travelling from the transmitter antenna to the receiver antenna with a vertical field, you're talking vertical field perpendicular to the surface of the Earth. Now say they're a kilometre apart. We could work this out right down to the minimal quanta. We could work this out. Now, that electric field is vertical, but the photon vertical field is going up and down, up and down. The value, the vector of the electric field is oscillating up and down at the frequency. It's not the space between the photons. Up and down. Now there is a space between photons, of course. I'm not disputing that. But what if you've got different electrons and they're all next to each other and they're all pumping out? These are all vertically oscillating photons. The photon ain't moving. The field is moving. The photon is travelling along that straight line, along that z-axis, that perfect straight line between the transmitting antenna and the receiving antenna. Straight line. The vertical field is oscillating. Now I'm sure you can picture that. I don't even have to write it down, Gary. It's a law of nature. It's tied in with Planck's law. It's tied in with transmission law. Law, not made up crap. Law. So you got this voltage field going up and down. Right, we won't discuss the mechanisms why it's going up and down. It's just going up and down. Same time, and at the same frequency, the magnetic field is changing left and right, left and right, left and right. Think about it. So the photon hits the dipole receiver. Magic. This is where the magic happens. And I don't have to draw the pictures. I want you to picture it in your head. The centre point, what they call the feed point of the dipole. As the magnetic field is cutting through one way on one half of the dipole, and it's cutting through the other way on the other half of the dipole, it's generating a differential in potential. It's an AC field. And the current distribution is maximum at the centre because of all the current field is built up because it's opposite to the electric field. And the electric field looks like a half a sine wave at the 0 point, so from the maximum of the positive cycle to the minimum to the maximum of the negative cycle with the 0 point in between. So you got, I'll draw it out because you won't be able to picture this. I'll draw it out. 2 bars make the dipole. I'll write in there dipole, just so you know. Dipole. Now the magnetism goes through the dipole and induces a voltage. So the voltage and the magnetism contained within the photon is converted into, the voltage is what polarizes the dipole, and then the magnetic field passing through the conductor induces the voltage, and then that goes down your coax. That's your dipole picture there, okay? Now I'm going to draw in the voltage distribution. We'll call that one positive and that negative. You see, so one half of the dipole's gone positive and one half of the dipole's gone negative. Now I'm going to draw in, I'll draw it in red just so you know, the current distribution of a dipole. Current distribution, which is all the accumulated electrons that have been motivated by the magnetic field that's your current distribution. It's not exact in that proportion, but that's just to give you an exaggerated idea. As you get closer to the center of the dipole, the current increases. Like I said before, and I wasn't being patronising, and you got quite abusive, I said you're getting close, but you're nowhere near me. I don't care who you are or what you think you are nowhere near me. Good luck with your theory, Gary, and you've been doing it for 7 years. I've been doing this for 40 years, and I thought I'd explore some alternative views, and I see a lot of people struggling out there, so I've made this video to try and clear your path forward. Whether you acknowledge me or not, or whether you want to abuse me, I really don't care. Your abuse towards me is worth 2 knobs of goat shit, really. Anybody. I caught more abuse than you could imagine, and you know, I know about, don't get me on philosophy, I know about the human spirit and the underbelly of reality. But you want to know about photons and energy, talk to me. I'm number one, without a doubt. I've proven it. All my stuff works, and for those people that want to put comments and say, here's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action, or I'm a Dunning-Kruger candidate. Where are your videos? What have you done with your life? Why are you not rich? Yeah, just hide behind your anonymity. Crazy crap. I'm the real deal. I do this for a job. I've done it for a job for over 45 years. I know my job. Don't tell me I don't know electricity or light. I can calculate it down to the last quanta, plus or minus the error factor. And there's always an error factor. You want to talk big numbers? I calculated a number out once was the 1 times 10 to the 1800th power. It was a big calculation. I gave up because it wasn't worth wasting my time on. And they said, why are you giving up? I said, because the error factor is over 1 times 10 to the 120th power. It's almost a 10%. The error factor was too great, so I don't go there. Anyway, that's my answer to your draft science versus the 4x wave thing. I hope the information contained in this video assists you, Gary. Yeah, cheers.